Well, Mom.
What is that over there?
So this is the audio recorder. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
It's audio recorder?
Yeah, so this is the recorder. It records all the audio for us, which is nice.
Fancy.
Right?
Wow.
Well, Mom, welcome to the Hart Hustle Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today at the time of recording.
We just ate and we're...
Yeah, exactly. This is Mother's Day. So 2023. Always a day that we can celebrate moms. You know, me and Alexa always joke around about what an amazing, like, motherly figure you were for us. And we always laugh about kind of the relationships that everybody's got and their perception of their parents.
Don't make me cry.
Oh, Mom. I mean,
Oh, no. Okay.
yeah. But I mean, we always just appreciate you so much. You know, you're always just so nice to us and so uplifting and so supportive. Yeah, I mean, it's
Never
true.
yelled.
Never yelled. I mean, we were joking because we were talking about something the other day. We're like, yeah, could you imagine if Mom was ever like mean to us? And we're like, oh my God. Couldn't even imagine you like raising your voice or threatening us or being angry about anything.
Well, I did call you back to threaten you to...
Clean our room? Yeah, exactly. So that's the one downfall. My mom always used to call me back to my house when I was like 14, 15, 16, 17 years old to come clean my room. I guess I
Both of you guys, I had to do that too. Both of you.
Right. But
Isn't
I'm
that
pretty
crazy?
sure Alexa.
Get back here. Where are you?
Yeah,
Oh my God, that's what...
I know. But that was the kind of stuff that we stressed about when we were, you know, a little bit younger.
No, because it was like, I didn't want to... I was like, I think it's just because I didn't want to have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, geez Louise, you guys are old enough to do it yourself.
Yeah. So what was it like kind of raising, you know, two
Alexa
kids
and
who,
Keenan?
were as busy as we were?
I don't know. It was, well, we were so busy, like with sports and stuff, you know what I mean? So because Alexa was in sports, and you were in sports, so she kind of came along. Thank God she wasn't a, what do you call it?
Like soccer player or something?
No, like maybe like a ballerina. That would have been terrible. No, it was easy raising you guys because you guys were so motivated to do stuff, you know, so.
Yeah. I mean, playing all the sports, like what was it like when we first started like signing up for sports? Let's talk about baseball. And then we've got to travel for all the summers. Was it something that you expected to be on the road doing as much stuff as we were doing when we were kids?
I think because when you guys first started, your first sport was soccer. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I didn't clean it.
You were my coach? No, go ahead.
Yeah, so
I mean, so you were... I do remember you being my coach. So I played soccer one time as a kid. I think it was in 5th grade. No, I'm sorry. I was 5 years old. Yeah, I was little tiny. 5 years old. Played for the 6 Shooters. My mom was my coach. Alexa also played. She played for a team called the Little Critters. Yeah.
And I remember they said, oh, you know, we're going to sign you guys. We're taking you sign-ups or whatever. And then they said, well, we don't have a coach. So if we're going to have a team, you're going to have to coach. I'm like,
the classic
I thought
dupe.
we were going to be... I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I've never played soccer. Yeah. So yeah. And they're like, well, you could, you know, yeah, there was no training, no nothing. It was just like, get out there. And that is funny. Now that I think about that.
Because it's always a parent who coaches, right? They never have experience, but all the other parents are watching their kid on the field run back and forth aimlessly after the little soccer ball and stuff like that. That was a lot of fun.
And
I remember
Alexa
those days.
was like, I don't want to run. So she was a goalie.
She was a goalie.
So
Yeah. She just stood there.
What did they say that kind of like was the whatever of her life?
Yeah, it was like the framework that she established. So let's talk about this. This is one of the things that I always joke about.
Mean.
My mom had a philosophy with Alexa, my younger sister, when we were growing up, doing chores, doing hard labor outside, having to plow the driveway for snow or go mow the lawn. We used to split those responsibilities as a kid, and Alexa used to have to do them until one day Alexa started doing such a terrible job at cutting the lawn or shoveling or anything like that she never had to do it again. And what was the piece of advice that you gave to her?
If you do a really bad job, like you're crooked or whatever, they're going to say, oh, forget it. Just go inside. And they'll never ask you to do it again. And it worked.
That was one of those framing moments where it's like someone, when you're real young, says something to you like, you can be an astronaut or you can manipulate people by doing a really bad job and never having to do the work.
And remember, we'd be outside, remember in the yard, like doing the yard, and you'd be like, where's Alexa at?
Yep.
Like, where's Alexa?
Inside, hanging out. on Twitter or something back in the
Oh
day.
yeah, she was
But
no MySpace.
MySpace,
MySpace. That was her.
Alexa, man, just crazy,
No,
insane.
like, and then you were playing baseball. So then, um, we spent so many, having like, what was it? We had to go like on Friday,
Fridays.
Saturday, and then we'd come home on Sunday
Mm-hmm.
every weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Driving different places,
Yeah.
spending time in those really dumpy hotels that we used to stay in.
But
Oh my
actually, for
God.
parents, though, it's actually not that bad. I mean, getting the kids there, and then you guys, once you are there, because then you're with all the guys playing, you guys would go to in the hotels, you would go to the rooms and you would play video games or whatever. And then for the parents, really, it's kind of relaxing, actually.
Because your kids are just like patrolling themselves pretty
Yeah,
much.
so you really are just like sitting in the lawn chairs, sun tanning and watching. I mean, it's not any work for the parents.
I actually think about that because it's like when you get to the tournament, it's report to coach and be with the team.
Yeah. Oh, and then you never see your kid be like you said, because you guys would be like, we're gonna be in Bobby's room playing, video games. Back in the
Yeah.
day, you guys had to play. You guys played Xbox.
Xbox.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah. So it wasn't, it was just that you were away every weekend.
Mhm.
That was the thing. So
Yeah. So, question for you. What was it like having a student like me who was really never motivated by school?
I didn't want to be in school.
What was that like?
Well, it was just really it was frustrating because you wanted you to be able just to get it done, and
Mhm.
you would be like, I don't want to do it. I don't know. It was just really,
Because I just remember, like, at a super early age, just being like, "This isn't for me.
yeah.
Like, I just don't want to be here
What grade was
spending
that?
time." Second grade.
Oh,
And
I remember it earlier than that. It was.
Oh, I remember coming home at second grade and being like, "Mom, I don't want to do this.
Was that
Like,
Mrs.
please."
Desham,
So Miss Desham was my first grade
first
teacher.
grade teacher?
That was when we went to St. Paul's Lutheran.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember you saying that actually when we were at Wilderness, and they would do those books, and then you would
That was
say
kindergarten.
That's kindergarten. And you
Mhm.
would say, well, so and so, she's, on book number 2, and I'm never going to get to book number 2, so you just basically quit.
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but I remember being on like the last day of school, you picking me up from Wilderness, from kindergarten,
Yeah.
and me working on one of those books on the last day. And it was the first book.
Yeah, they were like SRA books, were they?
Yeah.
Or something?
Yeah.
Or
I don't know.
I
It
don't
was just
know.
like school was just never it for me.
Yeah, you
I just
didn't-
didn't. I was never engaged. I was never interested in the topics. I didn't like the way that we learned
Mhm.
in the group setting. I don't know what it was.
Well, yeah. And the thing is that's why schools need to be, like now they have different schools that are for, people that are into like computers or
Mhm.
robots and things like that. That's what it is. Not all kids are going to fit into that
Yeah.
boring,
Yeah.
scholar type atmosphere, where they want to go home and like they don't want to play sports, they just want to read.
Yeah.
Which is
Yep.
great but it just doesn't work for all kids.
Yeah, I was always just interested in being outside and playing with stuff. One of the things I remember from being a little kid was used to buy me these little Lego packs.
Uh-huh.
They would come with like 30 pieces.
Mhm.
It was a little box
little
and you give them
box.
to me.
Uh-huh.
And then I just build them.
Right.
That was my favorite.
Oh yeah, I
Because I
remember.
could like use my brain and like figure out how these
Oh,
things
I
went
remember
together.
when you were like 3 and we bought a new vacuum. I said, like, Keenan, can you help me put this together?
What?
Yeah. And I remember there was like a, gosh, I can't remember the brand now, but and we had to assemble it.
Mhm.
And you put the whole thing together. You were like little, like
Yeah.
before we moved out of our house in Renton.
Oh, wow.
That's when it was. It was downstairs, and you were like, let me just figure it out. And you like put the whole thing together. It was,
Wow.
yeah. Isn't that weird?
I always loved that stuff. It was just like so much more engaging for me, just like figuring out all the pieces and then
Right.
like building something all like complete was just so awesome to me.
Yeah, not reading the directions.
Not reading the directions. Yeah. Man. So I'm older. I'm 5 years old. I'm 3 years old. I'm building stuff. 5 years old. I'm not liking school. 7 years old. We moved to Michigan. What was that whole experience like for you? Like as a mom being like, got to pack up the house. We're going to move to a new place on the other side of the country.
Yeah, you guys kind of like really adapted to that really well, though. I think Alexa turned 4 when we got there, right? Sure, I think her birthday was after we arrived or something. And yeah, it was just a new experience for all of us. And Yeah, that's when we decided to put you into what was it?
St. Paul's
St.
Lutheran.
Paul's Lutheran. Yeah. And because we found out that the house that we moved into, or the development that we moved into, or whatever, that school district hadn't had any children of any color yet.
Hold on, wait. Where was this?
South Lyon.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's why you guys put us in.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Because yeah, and I called, a woman had kind of warned me. She said, "Do you guys know where you're moving to?" And I was like, "Well, yeah."
Oh, wow. I didn't know this.
Yeah. And then she said, "You should probably call the school district." So I called the school district and I said, "So are there any children of color?" And she said, "Well, not yet." I'm like,
Wow.
"Not
So
yet?"
there's never been.
Never. No Asians, no children, Hispanic children, no children of color, of anything. It was just white
Wow.
children. And so I was like, okay, we're not going to be the first. Sorry. And so we put you guys into Northville.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you guys eventually went back to the South Line area,
4th grade. Yep.
you guys were one of the first children of color to be in South Lyon. Isn't that crazy to think about that? Like the whole school district.
That is wild. This is
Yeah.
1990. This is like 2000 because this is 4th grade or 3rd grade.
We moved in 1997.
Yeah.
So it would have been, you guys were there for 2 years. So yeah, you're right.
2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2000. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Because I do remember a big jump from being at St. Lutheran, which was a class of like 28 kids. But like, here's the thing about St. Lutheran. It was 106 kids, kindergarten through 12th grade.
was it 12th grade?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So there was like I remember like the 10th grade class or like the 8th grade class was on the same level as us at that school because it was a split level.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like 4 of them in there or 5 of them tops.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So you guys went out to South Lyon and, which, that district grew so much then. But of course you wanted to play football. So I remember you and like going, "Mom, sign me up for football. Sign me up for football." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So the district we were in, you couldn't play football until like you were 7, maybe.
Mm.
And so you wanted to play so early that, so I looked into Novi, and Novi would allow you to start the year before. So I signed you up for football in Novi. That's how we started doing all the sports in a different city in which than where we lived.
Oh, wow. Because like it was interesting for everybody who's listening and watching. We lived in a town that was split by like grid systems, right? Because like north of 7 mile, 8 mile, 9 mile, 10 mile, Chubb, all the other roads that were up and down, Napier, all that kind of stuff. And we were 2 miles away from the cutoff between one city and the other one. And so we went over the border of the city limit and started playing in Novi and Northville.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you just kind of kept. That's when you met some kids or whatever, and they said, "Well, let's play, baseball." So then you guys started playing baseball, and then you played travel baseball. So it just kind of grew. And
Do you remember the first baseball team that I played for?
the first baseball team ever,
Yeah.
was it in Seattle though?
It was in Seattle.
I think I still have the jersey.
Yes.
for
What
it.
color is the
Was
jersey?
it not the green one? It was. I can't remember.
I think I played for a team called the Cubs. And I was like 5 years old.
Oh, you did.
And we traveled around.
Yes.
Or I'm not sure if that was travel or
I
not.
think you said, yeah, no, it was considered a, they called it team baseball or something back then. Yeah.
That was a
And your-
blast.
yeah. And your coach was, the family, that man from out in Maple Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember those days because I remember being in the outfield. I have like an image of me being in left field, and standing there and like wanting to wait for a pitch or something like that. That's like one of
Yeah.
my earliest
Well-
memories of baseball.
I do remember at first when you played baseball, you were like looking around and not, I would be like, "Pay attention." Not realizing that no kids pay attention in baseball at that age, so.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about how like long ago that was, but it doesn't really feel that long ago.
But then you moved to, when you moved to Novi and you played baseball.
Yep. Remember it was machine pitch? Or was it coach pitch first? Because it was coach pitch because we played in that rec league. And then because I had that small little tiny Novi jersey. Do you remember? I still think I have that. Or Alexa
Oh, yeah,
has
I
it.
think
Somebody has it.
yeah. We still have all those jerseys.
And then I went to machine pitch. And then I always remember each year a huge highlight of my life was being selected for the all-star team for machine pitch. And just like how much fun that was to play back in the day. Just
And
run
you had
around.
your own bat.
Had your own
remember?
bat, used a wood bat.
You used a wood bat, which we still have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used a wood bat, and that wood bat, and then they said later on, oh, you can't use a wood bat. You have to go to aluminum.
Yeah.
And you were like, what?
Yeah.
You know, that's funny. Yeah, I think that you were like so mad about that you couldn't use your wood bat.
I love
But
that wood
you
bat.
did use it though. Like for some reason, I want to say you used it for like a year, and then you finally got into the aluminum bats. But
Those aluminum bats were a big deal. You could hit those things so far. I'd hit like 2 home runs a game in machine pitch.
right,
That was a blast.
yeah.
Come right down the middle every time. Just crush
How
it.
many aluminum bats did you go through?
That was the thing back in the day. I think about that as like you had to have a different bat each year.
Yeah,
And the
new
bat was a
ones.
big deal.
Yeah,
you know?
the bats came out and they were all new.
Yep.
Yeah, they were right.
Mm-hmm.
And then like some kid would get a really good bat, and then you could use his bat.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it was. It really was. You try and keep them all shined up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was born in 1990, so this is early 2000s, 2000, 2001. That was when the big barrel bats first started coming out. Because
The what?
the big barrel.
Oh.
Because once you went from like machine pitch and you started doing like coach or kid pitch, right? You could get big barrel bats. And there was this one bat. It was called the TPX Gold that I had. I got it when I was 10 years old from Rick Green when we were on the Novi Heat back in the day, because he like had the hook up because he was a coach or
God, I
something like
forgot.
that.
Yeah, Rick Green, I forgot about that.
Remember that?
Yeah.
He was a really good coach.
really good coach.
Yeah, he was very, very. He expected a lot of you. He was like that first like hard nosed coach that I ever had, who was like serious.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is great, because everybody else was serious, and we dominated everybody.
Yeah. Well, he wanted you guys to be good because he didn't want to teach.
Yeah, he didn't want to teach anybody who was losing. Yeah, I remember that.
We're gonna be good.
Yeah,
Well, the dads were kind of intense too. They were, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's good.
everybody's dad was a coach, because the only time dad never coached me in baseball. He only coached me in football, and that was back. How old was dad back then? I was 10 years old, so he was 40, 41, 42 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And football.
Yeah.
Dad is a coach. This other kid named Bobby Thomas, his dad, Dan Thomas, was a coach.
Oh yes.
And they were so funny because they'd actually like scream at us and yell. And now that I think about it, like we were like 9, 10 years old.
You were
We were
little.
tiny. We were running around like bobbleheads, They'd be grabbing us by the face mask, and Dan would be smoking cigarettes and stuff on the field.
On the field.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then afterwards and stuff, they'd all get together in the parking lot, and you guys would throw the football.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the dads would all have beers
Yeah.
afterwards.
They would all drink
'Cause
after
they did
practice.
such a hard job coaching.
I know, it was so intense. And we were terrible. We got washed every single year. And for the Novi Colts, we would go like 1-9.
Yeah, that's true.
Every year we just get smoked.
Yeah.
That was tough.
Was it coaching?
It could have been the coaching, honestly. But that was back in the day when like football wasn't that competitive, Like we always just weren't very competitive because we had a mix of kids who just weren't very good.
Yeah.
There was like 4 or 5 kids who were solid. You played both ways. You played offense and defense the entire game.
Yeah.
And then all the other 46 kids would get subbed in.
And then there was Southfield.
And then there was Southfield, all the black kids who would come across, and they just be like so much
So
more
good.
athletic. And oh my God.
Oh, they were so
now
good.
that like I think about the kind of culture that we grew up in, like being the first colored people in a school district was pretty much prominent for that entire area of Michigan.
Right.
There was not a lot of culture, not a lot of Hispanic kids,
No.
not a lot of anything.
No.
And so when you
Like I
play
said-
against kids in Detroit, Southfield's a great example. It's like, oh my God, it's such a culture shock of like, who are these kids? They're bigger than us. They're faster than us. It's like, guys, like we can win this game. It was just so psychological back in the day.
Yeah. I know. That was crazy.
And then, so I played baseball for a couple years, played football for a couple years. And then, do you remember making the jump from playing for Novi to Detroit?
Yeah.
And playing for the Eagles? So I go from playing on an all-white team
Yeah.
to playing on an all-black team.
Right.
What was the adjustment like for you as a parent?
Oh, it was a long drive.
Yeah, it was a long drive. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a long drive.
Man.
It wasn't like you could drive and drop you off.
Mm-hmm.
It was like when I got there with me, and I had to take Alexa with me.
Oh, yeah, you guys had to stay there.
And we had to stay and wait.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, every single night that they had, and then they had a game. It was always in Detroit, and yeah, it's a drive.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, but great experience though.
Great experience. We had so much fun
Yes.
with those guys.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, so good.
I always wonder where all those kids are at today. All the
I
parents are at today.
know.
You know,
Yeah.
I wonder if they're still doing the same stuff.
Right. We thought about that too. We were thinking about, so you should look everybody up on social media.
Yeah. Because I don't know where everybody's at. I know little Mark Brown ended up getting drafted by the Cleveland Indians and stuff.
Right.
A
Yeah.
whole bunch of little kids.
Yeah.
Ended up doing some awesome stuff.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
what do you think has been the biggest adjustment in the recent years, kind of as being a mom? That now that your son is 32, Alexa's 29, going to be engaged this year.
Oh yeah.
So, what is the adjustment going through for
Alexa's
you?
gonna be engaged.
Alexa's going
right?
to be
Yes.
engaged this year. Yeah.
She's engaged.
She is engaged. She's going to be
Sorry.
married this year.
She's getting married. Yeah. The biggest adjustment. I don't know. I don't really have an adjustment, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean,
One of the things I always really appreciate about you as my mom is like, so when high school was ending,
yeah.
everybody was like talking about going to schools inside the state. Everybody was talking about sticking around.
Because everybody's kids were going to be, what was it? Like
Patent attorneys.
Patent attorneys, and they're going to be going to Yale.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, the pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you always told us, like, get out of here.
Get out of, go. And so you can experience, because I think you just grow more from experiencing, different cultures, you know what I mean? Leaving Michigan and all those people and stuff and going, like you went to South Carolina. That was an adjustment.
Very big adjustment. That was crazy.
Yeah. So, it's like, just get out of there. You have to leave. You have to leave and travel or, move away from that home city so that you just meet new people,
But you also have to be able to experience like different cultures in how people behave.
Yes.
Different ideas,
Yes.
different ways to, approach different subjects in society and stuff like that.
Well, like I said, when we lived in Seattle for years and then we moved to Michigan, it was a rude awakening as to the separation of cultures. People were saying, you can't live in that area. People wouldn't like a realtor wouldn't show wouldn't show us a house in a certain area. They were
I
like,
didn't
"Well,
realize it was like that.
yeah, well, I don't know if it was legal, but it was she said, I can't really take you out there to show you that. And I was like,
And that because dad's black?
uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like,
Or I'm white. I don't
or
know.
you're white. I know. Yeah, exactly. Like Livonia is a great example.
Yeah. Yep. She said, yeah. And I didn't know that the United States of America was still like that or that existed. So that was a culture shock. And unfortunately, when we had already been decided that we were moving, so it was kind of something where we just had to
Scramble on the back
figure
end.
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to So we already knew kind of where we wanted to live. So which was South Lyon. Your dad had played golf out there or something, and so we knew we wanted to live there. So we just had to figure it out and make it work, So yeah, so then when it came time for you guys to get out of high school, I thought it was so important for you guys to feel that you could move, you could leave, And I know a lot of people want their kids to live like, next to them or, around the block or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always
Or away at the
thought,
college.
yeah, it's like, no.
Yeah.
I think that kids need to go and experience new people,
Yeah, I think it's vital because when you don't get out of the same area that you live in, you don't realize that people do things differently. Because
Yes.
like 0 to 18 years old when you leave to college, like your world is formed around a microcosm of how the culture is in
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah.
And then going to South Carolina was a huge adjustment.
I bet.
As soon as I got down there, people
I
were calling me
bet.
Yankee. I was like, what does that mean? They're like, you're a Yankee. You're from the North. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
are we talking about the Civil War here? Like the
We talking-
1800s? Is that what we're really talking about here? They're like, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay.
Well, I've heard that too. Is that if you live in certain areas or whatever, if you live in certain areas that like if you move down to the south or something,
Mhm.
that they refer to you as the Yankee.
They do. Yeah, because you're from the North. They're like, no, yeah. I had no idea that was even a real thing.
Did I have to pay attention in history class more? So I did. Yeah. So But that was just like a shock to me, though, that our family was basically told that I mean, our realtor literally would not take us out there.
Yeah, it was like
We had to ditch her at the line, and we went to the housing area because we were going to build a house on our own because she would
so
not
she
bring us out
pulled you
there.
guys up to the neighborhood and was like, I can't go in there with you though.
I can't. No, she wouldn't even come out there with us. She
Wow.
wouldn't. She said, I can't. Unfortunately, I'm not able to
And was
show
this a
you
white
out
lady?
there or something. Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
But when the commission of the house was paid, she was there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure she was like, hey.
She literally was there. I'm like, what? Who is this woman? Oh my God, I know who that is. But yeah, it was like I said, it was just so important for you guys, and I think that's because after I lived in Yakima, Washington, and after high school, I left. I went off to college, and then I moved to Seattle before anybody else, pretty much, wanting just a change, and like I said, when you move to Seattle, then I was like, wow, like people, you experience different cultures and different people, and
Yeah,
you got to get outside that fishbowl.
you do. I mean, one of the things I remember about being in South Carolina was someone once said to me that they had never been outside the county before in South Carolina. They're like, I've never been. Yeah, I've never done it. I was like,
Outside the county.
the county that we were in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an example of why people are stuck in their own ways sometimes, and then how important it is to
Yeah, because you have to get
experience
out
other
there.
people.
You have to get out there.
Yeah.
And that's why I think like living in so many places, Seattle, Detroit, or South Lyon, South Carolina, Vegas, Hawaii, it's given me so many different experiences to see the
yeah.
different cultures of how people are, the things they prioritize,
Yeah.
just completely different.
Yeah. It makes you appreciate other people instead of being judgmental about people or whatever,
Yeah,
So,
because yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah, it's very interesting. So what are you thinking about is going to be happening in the next like couple of years? What are you looking forward to?
Oh gosh. Alexis getting married. Having 2 new grandchildren.
Yeah, how's this going to go? How are we going to treat these kids? Are we going to be nice to them?
Oh, they're so nice.
They are so cool.
Yeah, they're so cool. So excited. Yeah, and having Jason as part of our family now, and yeah, it's gonna be exciting. Yeah, just to see them grow, and yeah, so hopefully Keenan and Malia will still be here and not be moving or
Yeah, never know what's going to happen with us. Yeah,
right?
I think that's something that it's a blessing and a curse. One thing I've realized as I get a little bit older is it's important to spend time around your family.
Yeah.
I was at Trader Joe's today, and there was a guy as I was checking out. What do you call the person who's at the front desk? The clerk? The attendant? Cashier? I was at a cashier, and he was like, "What's going on today?" And I was like, "Oh, just gonna go grab breakfast with my mom and do the whole Mother's Day thing." He was like, "Oh, that's awesome." He's like, "Make sure you enjoy it because you don't know how long you're gonna be able to do that for." And I was like, that's just like so impactful because there's so many people who don't get to spend time with their mom. So I thought it'd be really cool if we were able to hop on the podcast and just be able to kind of document it. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's a cool tradition.
Yeah,
being able to kind of talk
true.
about
It's
this
like
stuff.
You don't ever know like how long your parents will be there.
Yeah,
Or your grandparents, or
everybody.
you take it for granted.
You do. I was listening to a podcast the other guy, and this guy was talking about an argument he was in with his wife, and he was like venting, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and he was like, "Yeah, we just got in a really bad argument today," and he's like, "Have you talked to her since?" He's like, "No." He was like, "Well, I mean, you should give her a call." And he's like, "I will when I get home." At the end of the conversation, the guy was like, "Well, who told you that?" He was like, "What? Who told me about it?" He was like, "Who told you you're guaranteed to get home tonight?" It's like you don't have an expectation to pass away in an accident.
Yeah.
So every day that we wake up is so vital. I'm so glad that we were able to spend today together.
Yeah.
I love you, Mom.
Love you. Love you too.